So yesterday evening, EA and DICE released a blog detailing all of the features and details of Battlefield 5 that they're going to be discussing over the next 2 months before the launch of the game. It seems they finally opened the door fully, and instead of being frustrated at the lack of tangible information being released about this game, we finally have a proper idea of what we can expect to learn about, which is just great news in my opinion. Now that list starts today with classes and combat roles, something DICE hasn't really spoken about much since the reveal back in May, so in my opinion, this was a good place to start. We're going to go into detail about the combat roles coming at launch, what they actually do, and how they change the way that you're going to be playing Battlefield 5 when you select them. In short, combat roles are branches under each of the main 4 classes that will diversify your playstyle when picking them and give you access to different traits. Those traits will give you more flexibility during matches. Now these traits are really important, and I'll go into more detail about them in a second when we talk about each specific combat role. The general idea is to break out of the standard 4-class structure, but set out clear directives when playing as a certain combat role. Now more of these roles will be added to the game as time goes on as we progress through the Tides of War live service after launch, but at launch each class will have 2 distinct combat roles that you can choose from. That means 8 in total for the game at launch. In total, 4 different blog posts were released today, one for each of the classes and their combat roles coming at launch. I'll go through these one by one, starting off with the Assault class, and by the end of the video, you should have a much better understanding of the overall class structure coming with Battlefield 5. As I'm sure we're all aware by now, the Assault class in Battlefield 5 is an all-rounder class, possessing weapons that can compete in close, medium and long-range gunfights, and is equipped with gadgets that lend themselves handy when there's a vehicle nearby. For primary weapons, you'll be able to choose from multiple assault rifles and semi-automatic rifles, with the rifle grenade launcher and sticky dynamite set as default gadgets. When you load up the game for the first time, more gadgets will be available for you to unlock as you play the class. Now the 2 combat roles that will be available at launch for the Assault class are Light Infantry and Tank Buster. The Light Infantry combat role sets you up as an assault player who's keen to simply get stuck into the action. It's your job to run in first, all guns blazing, and start the fight before anyone else does. With this kind of playstyle, you're more than likely going to take damage from enemies, and so the combat role will apply the first trait, called Battle Hardened, that gives your soldier the ability to regenerate slightly more health than other combat roles. No specific value has been given, however. With you also being a frontline fighter, you're likely to spend a lot more of your ammo pool firing at enemies, so the second trait, called Scavenger, gives you the ability to scavenge more ammo from fallen enemies. You know those little pouches you can grab when you kill somebody? You'll get a little bit more ammunition from each of them compared to what other combat roles can get from them. This Light Infantry combat role is the default one and is active the moment you launch the game for the very first time. The Tank Buster combat role is decidedly different, and from the name, I think you can guess what you're going to be doing: destroying tanks. This is an unlockable combat role that requires you to play as the Assault class to unlock it. However, unlock requirements weren't mentioned in the article. As a Tank Buster, you'll have 2 different traits. The first one, called Tank Painter, will spot enemy vehicles that you damage with your gadgets and explosives. That's going to help out the rest of your team with some added visibility. You will have to bear in mind, however, that the spot won't last forever. It is timed, so you'll still need to keep track of the vehicle you hit and try and hit it again and destroy it. And then that leads into the second trait, which is called Tank Scrapper. That rewards you and your squad with extra requisition points, which can then be spent on reinforcements like bigger tanks or the V1 rocket. With both of these combat roles, you will have full access to all of the gadgets and weapons within the class. There's no locking on different combat roles involved, but instead, it's the traits of each role that will define how you can play to a strength, and if you do, you'll be rewarded with certain outcomes depending on the combat role and trait that's currently applied. The next class in the list is Medic, which in my opinion is perhaps not as insanely powerful as it has been in the past few Battlefield titles. Equipped with SMGs this time around, the Medic's effective range is much shorter overall, but this plays to its new focused strength, which is reviving people. With the animations for both Medic and Buddy revives, taking your gaze away from the action for just a few seconds, having a weapon that can clean up the area at close range first will allow you to safely revive that fallen teammate. Default gadgets are the medical pouch and the smoke grenade launcher, which is new, that wasn't available in the open beta. That should provide soft cover to perhaps revive a teammate who's stuck out in the open. The two combat roles included in the Medic class are Field Medic and Combat Medic. Field Medic is the default combat role, and Combat Medic can be unlocked by playing the Medic class. Starting off with the Field Medic, this combat role sets you up as a Revive Master. The first trait, Healer, gives you additional requisition points when you resupply medical pouches to your teammates, and that will allow your squad leader to call in reinforcements faster, filling up that requisition meter. The second trait, called Swift Effort, allows you to sprint faster for a short period of time when you spot a downed teammate who needs reviving, allowing you to get to them faster and potentially avoid an issue where you end up getting shot at. Spotting the downed player also pings them in their HUD and UI that somebody is on their way to revive them. That may stop them from skipping back to the deploy screen. The second combat role, the Combat Medic, sets you up as a risk taker and someone who's willing to take a little bit of damage to save their own teammates' lives. Rather than solely focusing on being the healer and the reviver, the idea is to be out on the front line with other assault players and be their immediate backup. The first trait here, called Melee Expert, converts all your melee swipe attacks into takedown animations, provided you're within the range of taking down an enemy player. If you're outside the activation range, you can still swipe your melee weapon instead, so you've got to make sure you're very close to the enemy. The second trait, called Emergency Retreat, allows you to sprint faster when at critical health levels. This might mean that you can make a burst out of cover to revive somebody and then get back in, even if you've got low health. As with the Assault class, there is no locking of weapons across these combat roles or gadgets either, so you'll have access to everything that you've unlocked so far, no matter which combat role you end up choosing. Next on the list is the Support class, and this one interests me a little bit because it's changed quite a bit since the closed alpha, where we saw it as the only class with two different combat roles that you could choose from. You're of course the mobile resupplier of ammo for your squad, and you possess some rather heavy-duty weapons. You've got the machine guns. You'll be able to equip your soldier with L and MMGs as primary weapons, and default gadgets are the ammo pouch and anti-tank mine. As with all other classes and their combat roles, there are no restrictions on what weapons can be used with each combat role, and the combat roles for support are the Engineer and the Machine Gunner. Engineer is the default role, and the Machine Gunner can be unlocked by playing the Support class. Starting with the Engineer, this combat role will set you up as a soldier who can defend and protect. You'll be tasked with keeping vehicles running and building fortification positions faster than everyone else. The first trait here, called Vehicle Fixer, is fairly self-explanatory, but it allows you to repair vehicles faster than other support class combat roles, and it allows you to build fortifications faster as well. It seems the open beta structure of the support class, where any support player could build faster, is changing a little bit. The second trait, called Heavy Weapons Expert, allows you to fire static weapons and mounted vehicle weapons for a longer time before they overheat, giving you a slight edge if you play to your strengths of sticking with vehicles. The Machine Gunner combat role focuses on suppressive tactics, and it takes advantage of the power of the light machine guns and medium machine guns that you have access to. The first trait, called Bullet Storm, gives you an increased visual suppression effect over enemies, allowing you to obscure their vision more quickly, potentially forcing them to back out of a gunfight or move position to take cover. The second trait, called Focus Fire, spots enemies when they are fully suppressed. This is something we saw in the open beta, and now looks to be specific to just this one combat role. It has been further clarified that all support class combat roles will be able to build heavier fortifications like machine guns, cannons, barbed wire and more, but the speedier building is now limited to the engineer combat role. And last class on the list, Recon. This class is all about long-range engagements and providing intel to the rest of your squad and team about where enemies might be lurking. You'll have access to both bolt action and self-loading rifles as primary weapons, and default gadgets are the spotting scope and the Betty bomb. There will be more gadgets that you can unlock as you progress the class. The two combat roles for the Recon class are the Sniper and the Pathfinder. Sniper is your default starting role, and to unlock the Pathfinder, you need to play as the Recon class. The Sniper role does almost exactly what it says on the tin. It provides you with two traits that will allow you to take up that true sniper setup. The first trait is called Steady Hands, and this will increase the duration you're able to hold your breath to steady the scope on your weapon. That's quite important when trying to land a headshot without wasting a bullet. And the second trait is called Expert Marksman, and this partially replenishes the steady duration if you land a headshot kill, meaning you could stay scoped in, holding that steady button for longer if you want to shoot at multiple targets. Both of these traits set up the combat role to be a rather selfish one in my opinion, not really benefiting anyone else in the squad or on the team, unless you happen to be sniping at an enemy who's about to kill a team or squad mate. Just in general, it seems much more selfish than all of the other combat roles which do inherently feed in to that squad play. And lastly, we have the Pathfinder combat role. This one is really interesting, and perhaps my favourite of all 8 that I've now listed. Unlike the Sniper role, you're going to be leaning more towards frontline, intense combat, with different traits and gadget options that will help you set up positions that you and your squad can attack from. A unique ability of the Pathfinder role is that you're able to spawn on any squad leader on your team, not just your own squad leader, expanding your options further and potentially allowing a new route to open up for your squad, hence the name Pathfinder. This is trait number 1, called Advanced Scouting. Trait number 2 is called Vanguard, and this increases the amount of requisition points you get when players spawn on the spawn beacon that you place down as a Pathfinder. That spawn beacon is a gadget, unlockable in the Recon class, that can be placed down around the map to create this tactical insertion point. So then, that covers all of the classes and the combat roles, how they're set up, and what they actually do. Essentially, instead of the overall class being loosely focused around a wider role on the battlefield, each combat role takes the class in a different direction and allows you, with different traits, to use different abilities during combat. Thank you very much for watching today. Let me know your thoughts on all of these roles down below in the comments. Maybe let me know which your favourite is. Mine's definitely the Pathfinder, and maybe which you're looking forward to trying. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and you've got notifications switched on, that way you won't miss any of my future Battlefield 5 videos, and let me tell you, there's plenty more information coming this week. But until next time, my name is Westie, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.